My official erotica book, Joyride, is actually my best-selling book to this day. This is the book that I was referring to that is still trending in the top 100, top 300. Like just
What's going to rise websites out here? The man, the voice, the fragrance, and we are here with an author I got a chance to speak to very briefly at Exotica, and I wanted to get to know more about the genesis of her books and how really she got to this part. We talked about Freaknik a little bit when we spoke up in New Jersey, but obviously that's not going to be a real topic of conversation. But it's none other than the one, the only Cassandra Charles. Cassandra, how are you doing today?
good. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Now, I'm looking at your bio and I see you're a fellow HBCU grad like myself.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
so you have your master's in adult education. So I'm assuming, did you go into education as a career field?
No, I actually started off in TV production. So I went to
Okay.
Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia, and I did TV production, mass media. I loved it. Atlanta was hot. I worked for a good 10-year streak doing freelance work. And it was great. I mean, I really met a lot of new friends and, a lot of long-term friends. And it was just a great industry to be in. I have a funny story because, Atlanta was really hot and really popular. And then reality TV started really taking off, and I literally turned around. I'm like, this ain't gonna do much. This ain't gonna take off the way it is. And for those who may or may not be familiar with the production world, when reality TV came in, a lot of the core production, it's not quite the same as regular production that we used to do, and the rates got cut like significantly. So budgets were cut, rates were cut. So yeah, I was just like, it's not really my thing. I definitely don't want to get into the art of TV production was what I was attracted to. So reality TV at the time just wasn't for me. So I used to always do a lot of give back to my unofficial alma mater, Clark Atlanta University. And my professor at Clark said, "You're really good with the students and you're always talking and you're always here. If you just get a master's degree in anything, we'll hire you." So that was kind of like how my journey to get the master's started, initial goal. And then I ended up getting an adult education, and I just really took a liking to helping marginalized individuals, Black and Brown communities, just really undergo like a transformation because I had a lot of skills and experience with teaching and mentoring and those kind of avenues. I didn't feel it was fair to use my talents in a direction that wasn't going to serve my people. So I began my journey working in nonprofit, and I've been there for the last 12 plus years now, and I really enjoy it. It's like my alter ego. Well, writing is my alter ego because my 9 to 5 of my day job is an executive at nonprofits. So it's like a totally twist of my life, but that's kind of my journey.
Understood. I want to get on that, but there is, as a fellow HBCU grad, especially we're of a certain age, so we know a lot of the history, especially past few years. How much pride does it give you to see the resurgence from Morris Brown with the reaccreditation a couple years ago, and how it's back to growing and students are, because that was a dark time,
Yeah,
when they lost
yeah.
accreditation, and you saw some of that across the country, some of the smaller HBCUs. How much
Yeah.
pride does that give you as an alum?
So Morris Brown in 1881, got to throw it out there. We have been around for for a very, very long time. And I was the second to last class that graduated before we lost our accreditation. I'm not justifying why or how they lost it, but I understood at the time they were just misusing funds to take care of buildings that was kind of falling apart. There were certain buildings that just had no AC, so they were misusing funds. I'm not justifying that, but to know the history of the HBCU and to know that it was no longer with us, it was hard. It was even harder for those who have an attachment to Morris Brown as well as lived in Atlanta to watch the campus really just get sold up in parts and pieces. Like the towers were sold. For those who I know, we're talking about the towers were sold. The football field, it looks like a ghost town. So that really hurt me to the core. So I know we have a lot of rebuilding to do. I am extremely grateful and happy that we are trying to come back whole, but from the outside looking in, we still don't have, the whole campus, like, because the campus again was eventually sold off in pieces. So it's a really, really small footprint from what it was when I attended. But I am super grateful and proud to be able to say I graduated from Morris Brown College. I say it everywhere I go, to say I graduated from an HBCU school. So I'm really happy that they've done the legwork and put in the effort to kind of get us back going. I actually met last year I met a student, is in the top one. It's called like the 100 students that actually are attending the new version of Morris Brown. And I met her, and literally she had a purple hat, purple shirt, purple pants, purple shoe. Like, she was purpled out. And I thought she was alumni. She was like, I am just so proud to be able to come back to and be able to attend Morris Brown. And for that in itself, I am proud to know that people still want to attend the school that did lose its accreditation, that doesn't have an actual full campus. And it was just such a beautiful school. And I'm so grateful for the president now that's really shaking up, making moves, and getting some donations out there. So I'm really happy to represent Morris Brown, and I would continue doing it for as long as I can.
Oh, that's awesome. As someone like I'm a graduate of Maryland Eastern Shore, bachelor's and master's, but I also worked at the HBCU as well, Cal Poly
Okay.
Baltimore, and during my time there, they were going through the accreditation process. So
Yeah.
I was a part of that. So I saw firsthand how lengthy and intrusive, I could say, of a
Yeah.
process that is when it comes to the university and its function. So it's not an easy process,
Mm-mm.
to say the least. So
Yeah.
I was saddened when they got it, but even more glad, just as an HBCU alumni in general, to when I heard that, they got their accreditation back and the sort
Yeah.
of effort that it took. So that was just absolutely awesome. Now, you talk about you in TV production, and
Yeah.
um, we know how the plague of reality TV is, especially after the SAG after strike. We've just got a bunch of reality TV, and again, we had that
Yeah.
again back in '08. We
Yeah.
saw that happen. So you get to the nonprofit, you're executive, you start writing. How did the writing start?
So even back at Morris Brown, I mean, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. So when I got to Atlanta, it was in New York, in my opinion, is a melting pot of cultures and races. In Atlanta, or the footprint of Atlanta, especially in terms of the HBCU, it was 99.999% Black. It was a very small other population. So when I attended Morris Brown, I did everything Black. I was just so excited to be around my own kind, my own people, including reading. So even though I was an avid reader, I read kind of things that I just saw, nothing really in particular. And then when I got to Morris Brown, or when I got to college, I literally understood erotica, Black erotica. There's a section, a very small section for Black urban authors. So I started reading Black erotica. I started reading Zane, and I started reading Sister Soldier. And I was just like, what is this? This is brilliant. It was beautiful. It was beautifully written. And I was just that person that used to just go around campus and just sit down on the grass and just read and just really just enjoy reading. And I kind of just went through that my whole 4 years. And even after I graduated, I kept reading. And I remember saying, I love the storyline. And this is not a dig to any of these amazing authors, but I always read one book. And I'm like, well, what happened to this character and this character and this character? And at the time, I started pitching to my classmates or my friends. I said, if I ever write a book, I'm going to write like a series. Series are popular now, but in my opinion, back then, you didn't really see African American authors doing series, especially in erotica or urban romance. It was kind of a one book and done. And I said, if I ever write a book, I'm going to write a series. It's going to be like a 3-book series. And I used to just always pitch the idea, and people was like, well, you should write it. From the day that I said, I'm going to write a book, it took me like 10 years to actually like buckle down. Like, I will write, walk away, write, walk away. I never had any formal training. I didn't take any classes. I was just write. So initially my goal was to write a 3-book series. And I ended up finishing my series. It took me about 5 years to write a 6-book series. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I got to stop writing this series because it has to end. So I ended the series, and then the pandemic hit. And so I finished my official series in 2019, and the pandemic hit 2020. And I was like, this is boring. I got to be home. What am I going to do? So I read a ton of books, and then I was like, I'm going to write again. So I started writing standalone spinoffs to my series. So that's why I go by the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles. That's Jamie back there. But that's why I go by the Jamie Reynolds Chronicles, because it's kind of like the Kevin Bacon 6 Degrees of Separation. Like everything that I write, whether it's a 6-book series or my standalones, always go back to Jamie and her life. And there's always some kind of connection for Jamie. The last 3 books that I've written, when I was writing a 6-book series, the last 2 books in the 6-book series was very erotica-ish. It was very, there was dungeons and whips and all kind of fun stuff. And I was just like, this is fun. This is cool. And people were like, so you wrote an erotica book? And I'm like, well, not really. It's kind of urban romance. So people said your writing style for erotica was very graphic and really, really entertaining. I'm like, that's because listen, I grew up reading, Zane, who is insane to me. And I grew up reading all these, really, really dope erotica authors. So I now hold my head and say I'm an erotica author. And now I've made erotica flashcards and all kind of fun stuff for the culture, but I know we'll get there.
Yes, this is you. I'm glad you brought up sort of the whips and change and whatnot, because if I read correctly, your first book in the series came out in 2014. Is that correct?
2015. Yep, 2015.
2015.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's around that time of 50 Shades of Grey and how this. Well, I asked that because one of the things I see that when you have these sort of properties that become mass market,
Yeah.
they tend to bring eyeballs to lesser known stuff,
Yeah.
lesser known, because people tend to want, like, they can't get enough, so they start looking for more and more. Did you see anything, especially with that book coming out around that time? Did you see any eyeballs come to your book, maybe in association with the hype surrounding 50 Shades of Grey?
So no shade to 50 Shades of Grey. I wasn't I wasn't a big fan of the book. I didn't, and people will be like, "Are you serious?" I didn't find it to be detailed enough. And I thought I make a joke when I meet people and they're like, "Oh, is it like 50 Shades of Grey?" And I'm like, 50 Shades of Grey is cute. And I think in the erotica world or in the urban world, if you read someone like Zane, you will understand what I'm saying. Like Zane went, like Addicted was like crazy. Like Zane went Candy Liquor. I mean, like these books were just like raw in your face. Um 50 Shades of Grey had a love story underneath it, and I think that's what they kind of played on. I didn't just watch the movie, I read the book. The book was better than the movie, I can agree to that. I think they kind of made it very, I don't know, it didn't really connect with me.
They
So
sanitized it in some
yeah, pretty
respects, yeah.
much they really did. And I did not understand the hype of it. Listen, a book can be good or bad, but if you have the right marketing and you have the right audience behind you, it can be a bestseller. And I'm not saying that her book was not a bestseller. I don't think the hype of it, or the like, oh my gosh, like, it was banned from bookstores. I think when you start banning stuff, that's when people are like, I want to read it, because I can't,
Yes.
it's kind of like they can't read it. So again, I've read some books way before 50 Shades of Grey, and I'm like, this should have been banned out of a bookstore, because this is like very detailed and graphic. And, but you also have to put your imagination behind words. And maybe because the characters didn't look like me as far as Black and Brown, I didn't really relate to the storyline, where I couldn't see myself in those in those characters. And not because I don't live that particular lifestyle, I just couldn't see myself. He's a billionaire, and the storyline was a little bit. I'm just like, yeah, that to each his own. But it was a great entertaining movie. I just didn't get the BDSM kind of aspect out of it. And a lot of people who are truly in the lifestyle, and I'm not in the lifestyle, but a lot of people who are truly in the lifestyle would agree the same, as far as like it wasn't the rawness of the fetish or the kinks or the BDSM. It wasn't really as graphic as it could be. And it's not that it's like there's a form of possessiveness that goes with the BDSM lifestyle, and it didn't show that. It just showed like, he wanted her to try something and she was kind of resistant. But it wasn't like, I think the closest they got was, there was a female that was who like bowed at her knee in front of him and was like, I will do what I can. That was probably the closest. And I wish they pulled that storyline more a little bit. Like, how did you get her to be that submissive? Because it is an art to get them to be that submissive. And I didn't feel like the lead female character was that submissive. It was like, I fell in love with you, so I will submit to you. Where BDSM is like, you have to. It's kind of like a rite of passage, like a dom and a sub kind of thing. And it's hard. And I've only noticed that because I do thorough research on everything that I do when I write these books. I literally, I'm writing a book right now, and it does talk a little bit about the a swinger's lifestyle. And I've reached out to a swinger that I've met at the erotica, and I was like, hey, can we talk? I have a lot of questions to ask, and I want it to be visual. I'm like, what do you see? What do you feel when you walk into a club? Like, is there a cover? How do you approach someone? So I write from a place of like understanding, and I want people to read my book and be like, if they're in the lifestyle, they're like, she's spot on with it. And I don't feel like 50 Shades of Grey, I don't think that person was in the lifestyle. So it wasn't a connection to it, even though I'm not in the lifestyle. I'll say that again.
No, understood. I said I'm not either, but I understand a lot more now than I did when it came out.
Yeah.
And it's weird because there's a movie called Secretary with James Spader and Maggie Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
That is a, based on everything, a very good example
Mm-hmm.
of, say, dominant submissive sort of relationships.
Okay.
And it's a lot more graphic and intense. Not graphic as in like always beating, but it's believable in the
Yeah.
context of dominance and submissive. While 50 Shades, at least the movie depictions, like, I haven't seen it, I'll say that. But
You're
from
okay.
everything I've heard, it's some watered down
It's
mess
watered
from
down.
people who
Yeah.
who know.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny, I think Secretary predates 50 Shades by many,
Really.
many years. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting that that movie unto itself became this, the book and the movie became this beacon of, oh, like she's in
Yeah.
love with him and this power dynamic. And but you got this movie here that has a lot more accurate and realistic depiction of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's more so that was the fantasy of it, the, especially the rich white guy aspect of it
Exactly.
as
Yeah.
well.
I'm like,
And
yeah.
this
Okay.
plain Jane
Yeah.
woman. I was like that. That's a whole nother conversation, but
Yeah.
that's a fantasy I'm pretty sure a lot of women can go with. Speaking of women, where did the inspiration for Jamie Reynolds come from?
Um, so when I first started it, it was loosely based on my life. And what I did is the circle of friends that I've had or seen, I made like 6 or 7 people or experiences into one character. So Jamie Reynolds, ironically, my Cassandra Charles, and people used to call me Cece for a very, very long time. So Jamie Reynolds in the book, they call her JR for for a good part of the storyline. She lived in Atlanta. She went to a HBCU. So it was very loosely based on my life, but the drama associated with it came from other people within my circle that I knew or associated with or seen kind of happen. I'm like, yo, that's crazy. Like that should be in a book. So that's kind of how I got. But for the first, I would probably say the first 2 books, people be like, okay, Cassandra, this is you. Like the first 2 books is very, very close to being very accurate of my life. The rest of it is when I started adding, like twists and turns and little silly stuff to it. And then people were like, okay, now I can see this is so and so. Like, oh, that's so and so's story. And I'm like, if you choose to view it like that, but it's definitely a fictional story that I just made up based on things that I've seen or experienced throughout my life.
Understood. Now, what sort of reception has this, not just the Jamie Reynolds series, but also just the entire book line? What kind of reception has that received? And I'll say the next question, but what kind of reception has it received?
I'm going to be perfectly honest. I wrote a book in 2015 and I thought I was going to sit down and it's going to be a bestseller. Like I didn't realize realistically, until about 2018, 2019, that I had to really like market myself. Like I'm a very reserved individual. I don't, I don't really post a lot on social media. So I thought I could write a book and I thought it was going to just do something and that was it. And then I realized, like, oh, I actually have to work for this. I actually have to put in the effort and communicate and meet people. So then I started doing one or two event expos a year, one or two a year. So I did one, and there was this national best-selling author named Jade. And I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I follow you on social media. That's really cool. You sold 1 million copies. Like, that's crazy. And she was like, yeah. And I said, do you have any advice? Because I'm definitely one of those people where it's like, I'm going to learn from people who's already mastered it. I'm not going to, why reinvent the wheel? If you're willing to tell me, hey, how do I get to a comfortable point? And I never forget her statement to me was, people have to like you in order to like your product. And I was like, oh man, but I'm so private. At the time, I had no Facebook. I had a personal Facebook page. I think I had maybe 60 friends. To this day, I still have about 60, 75 friends on my private Facebook page. So she told me, or encouraged me, to open up a public Facebook page, and you can control how you post your stuff on there. So I don't post I don't post anything private. I will post after the fact, because I'm a very private person. I'm actually an introvert, believe it or not, trapped in an extrovert's body sometimes. So I think the first couple of years, I can't really say how my book did or how people received it. But now, in the last like 3 or 4 years, really the pandemic kind of woke things up for me. So I'd probably say the last like 3, 4 years or so is when I'm like, people were like, this story is so relatable. I really agree with it. Like, I hear it. I feel like Jamie is such a realistic character, because I've done a lot of the mistakes she's done. Her naiveness is kind of annoying, but I get it. When I was straight out of college, I did some of the same stupid mistakes. And so a lot of people do find it relatable when I did the series itself. And then when I did the erotica part, people were like, it's just so graphic and just so detailed. Some women will confide and said, I got a little moist when I was reading it. I had to take a break. I had to take a hot shower. So that always makes me feel good, that people are literally, like, people's bodies are reacting to the word that they're reading. It's almost like you're watching porn, but you're reading porn, is what I strive for. So I love the fact that people have been really receptive, as far as like, it's an enjoyable storyline and I feel like connected to the character. But on the flip side, not everyone's going to get it. And I think that's also, as being an author, you have to kind of own the fact that you're just like 50 Shades of Grey. So like 5 million copies. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't like it like that. So it's just like a balance when it comes to writing. I just tell myself and tell other writers, you have to write for the genre, or write for the clients or readers that you have already. I try my best to step out of my comfort zone every so often, but my core reading group and book clubs that read my book, I try my best to keep them still in my mind, to make sure that I'm staying true to, my storyline, my erotica. This book that I'm writing now is my very first non-African American character. I'm writing a white woman, KCD, believe it or not, writing a white woman as a swinger. She's kind of like this madam, per se, of the swinger world. But yeah, I'm just trying something new. But I'm not really too hung up on, I don't want to say the reception of it, but I'm not quite hung up on, like, I write because I love it. I enjoy it. I have people like my books. And then, even though I'm such an introvert, I can literally, in person, I sell a ton of books in person. I tell people all the time, like, my book Joyride is still trending to this day. It's in the top like 500. I think it's probably like 288, 300. And it came out over a year ago. But yet I only have 19 reviews. And I'm like, that's because when I did erotica, I sold about 150 copies per event. So I'm like, it's not per se what you see, like reviews, and people are really hung up on reviews. Oh, I'm trying to get to a certain number of reviews. I'm like, do your best, write for who you want to write for, find that core audience that really appreciates your work, and write from that point of view and that place, instead of writing from like, trying to get to the best. Of course, your goal is the bestsellers list, but you're trying to just scale it down if you can. And then, you'll get there in your own thing. But if you write and you're not writing from a place of love or passion, then I feel like it kind of shows in your work.
I think that's very on point. I heard I believe it was an interview with Rick Rubin just a few days ago. I've seen it trickling online, where he talks about how an artist makes music for themselves, not for the audience.
Absolutely.
And I think that's very true, because if you are always chasing the audience, you're never really going to get the quality or the artistic integrity in your
Yeah,
product that you're really looking for if you call yourself an artist or a
absolutely.
writer or some sort of creator. You're not creating for the masses, you're creating for yourself, and then hopefully the masses like it.
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And one of the things you brought up that I thought was very interesting, because this is something that I was told for years that I was reluctant to do, with regards that you're not selling the product, you're selling yourself. And
Yeah.
for many
That's right.
years, I was behind everything. You saw my hands, you saw some cologne. And the minute I stepped in front of the camera and the personality, and they saw the face with the voice, that's when things changed. That's when
Mhm.
the not so much the views or whatnot, but the sort of reception you get, the sort of networking connectivity you get, definitely changes when they see the person behind
Yeah.
the work of art. And especially
Mhm.
when they see it, hey, they're just like me, I can do this
Yeah.
too, and they're a lot more receptive of that. So very good points and things that I've heard many times. So, ladies and gentlemen, look, I've heard it, she's heard it.
Mhm.
You have a passion out there, do it for you, do it because you love it. Don't worry about anybody else.
Yeah.
But you talk about your books, and you're currently working on one now. You're branching out, not just you're branching out from books into other medium.
Yeah.
What else is going on with you?
Oh my goodness. So my official erotica book, Joyride, is actually my best-selling book to this day. This is the book that I was referring to that is still trending in the top 100, top 300, like just out of nowhere. It was just like really does really, really well. I guess I'm an international author because it sells in Canada and Germany and in Italy and like all these other around the world. It's amazing how well this book has been doing, which is thankful from a lot of different people who has been spreading the word to just, I've promoted this, or I've, given copies away for free, or I would turn around and, do an ebook giveaway, just something just to kind of bring some visibility to it. So in the book Joyride, my character Joy, she actually writes in the book that she makes a line of erotica for the culture. When I wrote it at the time, it just came out so natural on paper, and I didn't even think about it. So when I published the book, and I was just kind of sitting at home, and I was like, all right, what am I gonna do next? Am I gonna write another book? And I was like, erotica for the culture. So I literally Googled to see if there was a form of erotica products for the culture. And according to my Google search, I didn't find anything. Even some of the more popular African American erotica people, or people who are doing, bedroom activities and stuff like that, they're still promoting non-African American versions of it. So that was kind of how it started. And I said, well, Joyride is going to be its own little brand because the book was doing really, really well. It was nominated Best Erotica in 2022. So it was doing well. So I was like, let me just kind of stay on this whole gravy train of how well Joyride is doing. So my very first thing I came out with was my Joyride flashcards. And what these is, I'm hoping this is a show I can post these up on. Um, but these are 30 flashcards teaching you step by step how to do certain things in the bedroom. So there's anything from cowboy, there's leapfrog, there's the corkscrew, there's a little of everything. So, and they all have black and brown faces. So there are 30 cards. This is kind of what I came up with. I was like, hey, why not? Let me see how this well it does. And people were going crazy for these. They were just like, I've never seen this before. They're tastefully done. I had a graphic designer that worked with. They're tastefully done. It shows you step by step. If you look at the top here, where your hands go, where your legs go. It says who's person one, who's person two. It tells you the penetration option you can go into, whether it be vaginally, anally. So it literally just tells people step by step how to do it. For curiosity, for enjoyment in the bedroom, or just for educational purposes, people who are single or married, people like, oh, I want a deck of cards. And then it wasn't until we went to Erotica in New Jersey when we met, I had a box and I would put it on the table, and people will come up to me and be like, oh, is this a game? And I heard it like a million times at the event. I'm like, no, it's not a game. It's a deck of cards. And I had to like over explain what it was. And then I did Erotica again, which we met up again in DC. I did DC, and I'm like, again, is this a game? Is this a game? And I finally on day two, I'm like, yep, game's coming next year. And I didn't have no game in mind. I was like, game's coming next year. So now we have the Joyride game. It's kind of a spinoff of the card, which was a spinoff of the book. So we have a joyride game, and the game itself is really, really cool. It's actually 3 sets of cards, and each set is there is a to-do set. Excuse me, I'm sorry. There's a to play set. So it's 23 cards in all, and the way it's broken down is pretty simple. It's called it's a Joyride 69 game, and there are 23 to play cards, 23 to ask cards, and 23 to do cards. And what it is a game for couples. So you take the 23 play cards, and the play cards can be anything from, you know, you can tell them, you know, tic-tac-toe, strip tic-tac-toe. And the object of the game is, you know, you and your partner will play tic-tac-toe, and whoever loses taking an article of clothing off. So it's like they play all these random games. So there's 23 games, and then there's 23 questions, sexual questions to ask your partner. So that can be anything from, have you ever given someone a lap dance before? Have you gone skinny dipping before? Like, what have you done? And then the 23 to-do cards are going to be, and this is a 30 pack. I pulled 23 common positions out of the pack, and I put it in the box. So this is how you get the Joyride 69 game. And this actually comes out officially on February 1st, but pre-sale orders are available now. So Joyride has become a movement. We are now in 5 stores. Joyride is in 5 stores. And we're just having a lot of fun. So the game is in 5 stores. I also made a sex journal. And the way I did it is I listened to my customers. And I had a customer who was buying the Joyride flashcard, and they were like, oh, this would be a great gift, but I'm not a reader. My friend is not a reader. So I said, would you buy a sex journal? And they were like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then 30 days later, I made a sex journal. So my Joyride collection is the following: is the sex journal, is the box of cards, and it's my Joyride 69 game. So that is my Joyride journey.
That is so cool. I love the evolution of that. Now with the journal, is it like guided journaling, or how does that work?
So I call it an activity book for couples. I mean, yes, it's a journal, but it's an activity book for couples. And what it is, it just takes you and your partner through a world of. So I say, and again, people have corrected me, and that's fine. Women don't do porno per se. Like, women are not watching porno to learn or to educate. They may watch it to kind of enhance the moment, but no one's really doing it to kind of like learn where the position go. A lot of guys you would speak to or ask about their sexual experience, they're like, oh, I watch porno, so that's why I knew how to do certain things. So that's how my leg go. Women are not going to do that. So the card itself, the flashcards, is kind of like my way of saying, you don't have to have porno. You can just use these cards and feel comfortable in the bedroom. But the journal itself, it's a conversation between you and your partner. It is basic journaling. So you and your partner could actually like write out some journaling questions. So there's some journaling in here, but it also has a tracker. So you can write down your sex position tracker, whether using the Joyride flashcards or whether you're physically just telling your partner, let's try something different tonight. All right, we tried anal, or we tried doggy style, and I like that, I didn't like it. So you're really just tracking your sexual journey. And then also, listen, people sometimes, it sounds crazy, but people may have to plan a sex date. So here we have a sex planner. It has on here the date, the time, the place, and then you're going to write it in. And then you and your partner, and it's a way to kind of like open lines of communication, whether you're joking, whether you're serious. And it says on here, did you achieve the sex planner? Yes or no? And it's like a way to say, hey, all right, I'm gonna plug you in for Monday at 9 p.m. Does that work for you? And then it just kind of holds you accountable. Did you do it? And then there's also games in here. So this is strip tic-tac-toe. You and your partner will place tic-tac-toe. The loser of tic-tac-toe will take an article of clothing off. There is a dirty dice game where you can turn around. You and your partner can roll the dice, and where it lands. Then you have to do the sexual favor that the dice says. There is 2 truths and a lie. So write down 3 things about yourself sexually. And so it's literally a game. If I can sum up, my Joyride 69 game is literally this in a game, because in here, there is sex tracker in here, there's games in here, there's ways to open up lines of communication. And I think it's important for couples, whether you're in a marriage or you're dating or you're just in an actual intimate relationship, just to open up lines of communication and be comfortable to have a conversation about sex. Sex is such a And and I think the reason why it works for me as far as like selling it is because I look like a normal person. Like I'm not overly sexual. I'm not, you met me. I was not wearing a G-string and a bikini. I wasn't wearing anything out of the ordinary. I literally had on jeans and my sexy shirt, which is a shirt, a normal shirt with me, and it makes it sexy. And that's how I portrayed myself. And since I'm such an introvert, I try my best to make sure that my Joyride line speaks to those who are shy, reserved, but also want to be empowered. So I like to say my line is to empower women to step out of their comfort zone, open up lines of communication, tell their partner what positions they like, what positions they don't like, and just allow everyone to feel comfortable in the bedroom. But also, it's always awkward sexually when your partner tells you to do something and you're like, wait, where'd my arms go? Like, and it's just that weirdness in the bedroom. So I'm like, listen, you have some fun. You turn around, you take a card out, you put it down, like, yo, we doing this tonight. Like, you could just kind of have fun with it and just be silly, or you could just be serious. And again, it just allows people to be behind your private closed door. A lot of people feel ashamed or feel really weird to watch porno or to actually speak about, how to do certain things in the bedroom. They feel kind of ashamed, like it's very taboo to talk about sex. So this allows you to educate yourself. And again, it has black and brown faces that looks like you. And in the flashcards, I feel like if we have time, I'll whip out the cards. In the 69 game, instead of it being predominantly black faces, I did tap into my brown characters. So we have multi-race cards. So we have a black woman with a white guy, and then we have like a Spanish woman with a black guy and a Spanish person with a white guy and two white people. So I try my best to now, even though out of the 23 cards, 14, 15 of them are going to be all black. The rest of them I did kind of sprinkle in so I can make sure that I'm opening up the communication and just empowering everyone to be empowered in the bedroom. It is something where I have to be present to kind of sell it, because the reservedness and who I am sells really well, I guess. Like, people like the fact that I'm super square and I'm not like this overly sexual person. So people do feel comfortable to come up to me and be like, what do you got over here? And I'm like, okay, so, yeah. And I just talk to them and people are like, all right, I want that. And then I discreetly have everything packaged. Like, it doesn't even know what this is. Yes, it says sex on here, but no one really knows what this is. Even when I made the cards, I had a couple of very conservative stores were like, I don't know if we could put that in the store. And I said, the front cover doesn't even say anything about sex. It doesn't say 69 on here. It's really, again, so if someone stumbles upon this box, unless you turn it around and read the back of it, you really just going to think it's a card game for couples, a game for couples. And that's exactly what it is, just a game for couples. It doesn't talk about sex. It doesn't say erotica game for couple. It's a conversational game for couples, for you and your partner to have some fun in the bedroom. That's it.
There was a lot there, but one of the things that you really touched on that I was picking up, especially when you talked about the activity book, was that conversational piece. And I just, in my head, I saw in my head a couple just laughing and whatnot with it doing it. Like, oh, honey, you remember when we did this? Yeah, we did this
right?
on Friday, the 13th of night or what? And I saw the laughter and joy
Yeah.
of being together in that intimacy, and having a record of it, even the exploration of just being that vulnerable with each other in an intimate way, and having the activity book as sort of a guide to that. So I saw that instantly in my head, and I thought that was absolutely awesome. And the cards as well, I just in general, the fact that when you mentioned it, I thought about it. And again, I'm not really into the erotic space, so what's there. But you're right. A lot of people who do sell novelties and whatnot, they are just reselling what's there under a different brand name and whatnot. I have never seen, and not saying there aren't anything there, but
yeah, correct.
I have never really seen anything targeted toward any particular community, especially communities of color. And the fact that this is something definitely for the culture, I really like that aspect of it. And I think that that's something that brings it to a more of a relatable level, much what you're talking about as far as, you being square and so on and so forth, and people having that conversation. I think having something that's very it's not really niche, but it's just, hey, this is a different flavor, and a flavor where
Mhm.
you can see yourself, whereas and everything else is very generic and homogenized
Yeah.
and whatnot. I think that brings people in even more, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, it does. It does. And in a twisted way, it warms my heart when I have a white couple be like, oh, I want a deck of cards. And I'm like, because we as African Americans were almost tastefully forced to pick
Mhm.
up cards that didn't look like us. So to see that the opposite race of picking up cards that look like us is just so, I'm like, this is so cool. Like, you're really doing something here, Cassandra, that people are embracing. They're not seeing color, they're seeing art, and they see something that can work in their lives. So I love when I sell the cards, and so all races. I've done same sex. I mean, I love the fact that even though it's showing black faces, and for us as a black and brown community, we're like, yeah, it's for the culture, but people are seeing it as far as like education and arts, and they're like, oh,
Right.
I just want a set of it. So, because again, they may not understand how it is for us being black and brown to go into a store and we have to pick up nude, which is not our color. We have to pick up something that just has white faces on it. That's not us. So it's cool now to see that people are open and receptive to the fact that, because initially when I first started selling, I was like, kind of for black people. I thought I was like my niche, and I'm like, nah, it's for whoever is interested in exploring and empowering themselves in the bedroom. So now it doesn't even have a race anymore. It just so happens to have black and brown faces on it. But again, like I said, the new version of everything, not the flashcards, but the new version of the game and the sex journal, it does have some. I did incorporate the different varieties of what we are right now. So there is, like I said, there is there's mixed race in here, and there's Hispanic, and there's blacks, and there's white. So there's like a whole plethora of multi races now. I'm targeting in general.
I love that, but I think there's one thing that, especially when we talk about other races, especially white, Caucasian individuals picking up your items. I think there is something distinctive there, because even though it's targeted, and this is, I think, with all of our culture in general, when it's targeted for us, African American culture historically has been very inclusive, and we've never really discriminated against anybody. Like, no, you
Correct.
can't be a part of this. You
Hmm.
can't, you know, you are represented because we are all one people in many
Hmm.
respects. And I think that people in general are so surprised at that. And I'm gonna diverge and come back to the point. So for instance, I attend BlurCon on a regular, and I've seen people who are of the ethnic minority
Hmm.
speak online about it as BlurCon, DreamCon, and whatnot. And they're like, oh, it's just even going to HBC, I'm pretty sure you understand this too. It says, oh, can white people not go this and that? I'm like, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Everybody's involved.
Yeah.
Everybody's welcome. And that's the whole point of it, because in other venues, in other depictions, because of our history as a country specifically,
Yeah.
when it's only that one the depiction, it is very much, even if it's stereotypically, it is very much exclusionary.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whereas when you have, especially again, I'm African American, so I want to speak for that experience. That experience has always been inclusionary, even if it's some specifically created by African Americans, about African Americans, about American cultures. It has always been, hey, you're welcome to enjoy this too. Hey, you're welcome to like the song. Hey, you're welcome to do this dance. Oh, you're welcome to have this experience as well.
Yeah.
And I think that with something like this, it helps to expand that ideal. And because, look, whether we're having it or not, everybody loves sex.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
especially when you're having it, in this case, particularly you're having these conversations with someone whom you care about deeply and you have that connection with, both
Hmm.
emotionally, spiritually, and physically. It's something that can definitely bring a new sense of togetherness, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. I agree.
So, Cassandra, where can everybody find everything?
Yes. So author CassandraCharles.com. And my name is spelled with one S, but I'm pretty smart. So I have the domain name to author Cassandra Charles with either one S or two S. So you
Smart.
put both in, you're gonna get to my page. But yes, go to author Cassandra Charles and you will see my whole catalog there. To date, I have 9 books. I'm working on my 10th book now, which comes out in April. I have 4 journals, including my sex journal. And then, of course, I have my Joyride card and my Joyride game. And everything's available on my website. Again, that is author Casandra Charles .com. You can also find me on social media. It's also author Casandra Charles. That one is spelled with 1 S. But author Casandra Charles on all social media platforms. And it will also link you to purchase my cards. My Joyride game up until February 1st, I'm not too sure when this will be airing, but there's a $5 off promo right now for pre-orders of the Joyride game. So if anyone's interested, jump onto my website or my social media pages, say hi, and go ahead and support a Black-owned business.
Well, Cassandra, thank you very much for your time. You guys, you should have seen all of those links flash underneath from Ms. Charles there. If not, they're going to be definitely down in the links. You can find her, all on social media. All those links are there. Check her out. Buy something.
Thank you.
Oh, one quick question before I let you go. Especially with your background, has there been any conversation of turning any of your books into a multimedia property, whether it's a television, film, web shorts, podcast, maybe anything like that?
Yes. So I have been approached to make Joyride into a movie. I'm very slow in putting it together. It is my baby. So Joyride, I'm trying to get Joyride into movies, probably going to either be on Tubi or probably BT down the line, because that's who the producer connects with. So be on the lookout. I can't say too soon, but be on the lookout probably about 2025. You might see something popping up. But I really do have to sit down and write the script. So I got to stop doing these podcasts. I got to stop making these books and these cards, and I got to sit down and work on the script. But he is very supportive and says, I want you, like you said, you can't really force it. I want you to make magic how you made it in this book. So we will circle back, because of course you guys will be coming to the premiere, I hope. Yes, we will circle back in a couple of years, in a year or so, and I'll let you know more about it.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking forward to that, Cassandra. Thank you very much. You guys, you know where to find us. Webster Style, we out.